This is the KOB4 Vote for New Mexico debate for Congressional District 1.
And good evening, everyone. I'm Tessa Mentis, here with Steve Solis, and we are tonight's moderators. Now, District 1 represents all of Albuquerque and parts of central New Mexico.
We welcome candidates Democrat Deb Haaland, Libertarian Lloyd, Princeton, and Republican Janice Arnold-Jones. These are the debate rules. Candidates will get 1 minute for opening statements, 90 seconds to answer questions, and 50 seconds at the end to close.
Now, last week, the candidates drew names for order of appearance, and Deb Haaland, you will give your opening statement first.
Hi, everyone. My name is Deb Haaland, and I am the Democratic nominee for Congress in New Mexico's 1st District. Congress has never heard a voice like mine because there's never been a Native American woman in Congress. I'm a single mom. I know what it's like to be on food stamps. I know what it's like to piece together health care for my daughter and I. My daughter Soma and I both graduated from APS. We both graduated from UNM. We're both paying off our student loans. In this era of Trump, we need new, strong voices to go to D.C. to ensure that we're fighting for the things that New Mexicans need and deserve, like moving New Mexico toward 100% renewable energy, making sure that everyone in our state has health care, and working very hard to ensure that our public education system gives everyone a quality education. I am that voice. I've lived New Mexico values. I would appreciate having your vote on November 6th. My name is Deb Haaland.
Mr. Princeton, you may start your opening statement.
Thank you. So I'm Lloyd Princeton, and I believe that it's time for New Mexicans to seek a new direction in leadership and in partnership. I believe that the role of a congressperson is to engage with and stand by your side, and to remind Congress every day that the job is to make way for our constituents to have security, stability, and success. It's my intention, my mission, to extend a hand up to my neighbors, but then step out of the way when assistance is no longer needed. It's also time to return power to the people, power that's been taken by the Republicans and the Democrats. Let's find a new way together. Join me in demonstrating that when people invest in people, and with true respect and understanding, that there's a bright future that's possible that we can share. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Princeton. And Janice Arnold-Jones, you may give your opening statement.
Thank you to KOB and to the viewers who have invested time in this election. I am Janice Arnold-Jones. I'm a Navy wife, a mom, soccer coach, loyal Albuquerque High School Bulldog. In 1963, my dad was killed testing a B-57 bomber. As a newly widowed mother of 3 children, my mom decided that New Mexico, with its great mix of people, unlike anywhere else in the country, held opportunity for her children, and she was right. I grabbed that opportunity and became a successful businesswoman with over 30 years private sector experience, including 12 years as a contractor to Sandia National Labs. I served 8 years in the New Mexico State House of Representatives and also on Albuquerque City Council. I have a proven record of listening to and working for New Mexicans. Most importantly, I have the experience and the passion to do what's right. Janice Arnold-Jones, I'm asking for your vote.
Let's jump into our first question. We know New Mexico is trying to be less dependent on federal spending, but the truth is our state still needs those dollars. So what will you do in Washington to protect funding for our military bases, the national labs, and our other federally funded institutions?
And Ms. Arnold-Jones, you're first.
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. You know, we have all been together on panels for the last 5 months, and I have been listening. This debate, this election, is about principles including liberty, life, individual responsibility, and basic math. In the real world, we all know that if you lose $20 million, it's a big deal. As chair of the Laguna Development Corporation, Deb cost her pueblo over $20 million. That money has not been recovered. She also overlooked the theft of over $800,000. You know, this is about real money. The government doesn't have money. It's your money. We have to be careful with it, and you have to be careful with the math. So in answer to the question of what do you do to secure and protect our labs and bases, I will be there every day. I know the labs. I know the bases. I will make sure that Congress knows what we can do for our country, and that's really the gist of it. Our bases, our labs contribute something very special to the country, and it takes a dedicated delegation to make sure that the work that needs to be done here, the work that we are so good at, actually stays in New Mexico.
All right, Mr. Princeton, you're next.
Absolutely. So, New Mexico is uniquely situated because of its climate to really be the ideal place for bases. So while I do think that we need to address, our military spending, I don't think any reductions need to happen in New Mexico. We've got more restricted airspace. Metal doesn't rust in the desert. And, we've got more land space that we need to use it for everything that we can. So, the one thing I do want to take into consideration is that the current missions that are being, exercised with, in terms of missiles or in terms of Air Force, we need to take in consideration the local communities as well as the outdoor groups, which do have some concerns. So we need to take that into consideration, the concerns of the community, as well as the fact that we're trying to retain these federal dollars. So I think that's an important factor. In terms of the labs, we need to keep them going as they are, and we need to continue to export the technology that's coming out of Sandia and Los Alamos into the private sector. I mean, Sandia has its technology council, which helps their former people explore private practice, with technology. So you want to continue things like that. It's possible, and we will continue to get venture capital into the state utilizing these technologies. So we're good to go.
Thank you, Mr. Princeton. And Ms. Haaland, your answer.
Thank you so much. I've advocated for the labs and for Kirtland Air Force Base since my primary election campaign. I believe that we should expand the missions, both at Sandia Labs and the base. We need to ensure, look, we have so many wonderful and bright people right here in New Mexico who can work on finding answers to climate change. We can find ways to combat climate change, and I believe that that is a viable and a very important mission that we can add to the missions at the labs and the base. I also, as a member of Congress, will ask to be put on the Armed Services Committee. I believe with my growing up in a military family, I believe that my experience also being an honorary commander on Kirtland Air Force Base will help New Mexico if I am on that committee. So I would say expanding our missions and ensuring that there is a strong voice in Congress to ensure that our labs and our bases continue to operate into the future.
Ms. Haaland, thank you. Our next question. Based on the partisan fighting that we have seen in Washington, so many people are worried about whether they will have access to affordable health care. So what is your idea to ensure New Mexicans have access to reliable and quality health care?
Mr. Princeton, you are up first.
Right, that's a great question, and one of my favorite ones. Everybody needs access to affordable health care, and the first thing that we need to do is to take the complication out of the system. We absolutely need transparency in pricing. We need to know what the true cost of a service and a product is. Secondly, we need to have major medical insurance available across state lines. We need the FDA to start approving generic drugs much faster than they have. And then probably even most importantly, we need to start dismantling the restrictive contracts that the government is engaged in. Medicare should be able to negotiate the cost of pharmaceuticals, and hospitals should not be engaging in restrictive agreements with insurance companies. All of these things combined together have increased the prices and lowered the quality outcomes. And if someone needs, Medicaid, they should get Medicaid. We know that Medicare is something that's already paid into, but we need to decomplicate the system, allow for very healthy competition. That healthy competition is going to increase the quality, decrease pricing, and consumers are actually going to have options. And then factor in some direct primary care so you can actually pay a little cash out of pocket when you need some day-to-day services, and we're going to be golden. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Princeton. And Ms. Haaland, you're next to answer.
Thank you so much. Well, first of all, I would never vote to repeal the Affordable Care Act. Right now, many New Mexicans rely on the Affordable Care Act for their health insurance. Half of our state is Medicaid eligible, and so we need to make sure that people can continue to gain health care. It's an economic issue, and so finding ways to ensure our population would be a smart investment for not only our state but our country. Countries that have gone to universal health care have paid more per patient than when we go by the insurance system. So I believe that if we move to universal health care, our country could not only save money but could offer a better quality of health care to the citizens of our country. Additionally, there has been talk about privatizing the Veterans Hospital. I do not believe that is a good move, and I would fight against that.
Janice Arnold-Jones, you may answer.
Universal health care, single payer, Medicare for all, it's all the same. And I have to say that Deb's math is a little frightening to me, because that number comes out to $10,000 per year, per person, per child. And there is no guarantee that you will get any better medical care. I come down on the side of agreeing that competition will be better, but there are so many more things that we can do to make sure that health care is available. And one of my favorite things, since I'm one of the few, in fact, I'm the only person on Medicare up here, I would like to do away with that statement that says this is not a bill. It makes no sense, and it does not add up. The math is funny. But there are other things. We need to work on drug pricing. You know, Americans deserve to have competitive drug pricing, competitive with the rest of the world. We should be able to buy the same kind of insulin that's available in Mexico for $12 versus what's available here for $100. This doesn't make sense. There is a lot of work that has to be done on health care, and I'm ready to do it. But the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act was not getting it done and making it worse. We have issues with Indian Health Services where they don't even have any doctors. The VA, many of our veterans really need to be in their own communities. We can do this. Health care can be available.
Thank you. Recently, KOB4 worked with our debate partner, New Mexico First, to hold a series of town halls across our state. Here's a question from town hall participant Hope Morales.
Our town hall group applauded the goal of working across party lines. If elected, what strategies will you advance to avoid partisanship across the board?
And Ms. Haaland, you may answer first.
Thank you so much. I've spent the last 20 years of my life organizing communities across New Mexico to make sure that they get out and vote. Underrepresented communities who haven't generally had a voice in our politics. I believe very strongly that building relationships is a quality that I possess, that I do very, very well, and I intend to go to Congress to make sure that I do build those relationships. I think we can start with issues that we all agree on. And one thing that I have worked on through my career, I was a tribal administrator at the Pueblo of San Felipe. I understand how the federal funding works. I ran the federal programs at the tribe. So I believe that with issues such as federal funding for Indian tribes, those are issues that I think we can all agree on. I will reach my hand out to make sure that I can find the folks in Congress who want to move our country forward, and I think that by building those relationships, I will build some opportunities for New Mexico.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Arnold-Jones, you're next.
The answer is bizcochitos. No joke. When I am in Congress, I intend to deliver bizcochitos to every member of Congress with a statement about what New Mexico brings to our country. But that's all fluff. The reality is, when you serve in a legislative body, you must have relationships. People need to know that you care about, or at least that you understand what they care about. When I was in the legislature in Santa Fe, I was in the minority, but still got things done because you learn that your word is your bond. You have to build those relationships, and I will work every day to make sure that the relationships are not just folks on the East Coast who really often don't understand what's happening in New Mexico, but is across the country. This is about working not only for New Mexico, but working for our country. It's time that we work together.
Thank you. And Mr. Princeton, you're next.
Great. You know, in answering this question, I also want to just touch back on Medicaid and the VA, and the reality is when you have bigger government, things just become less efficient. And I would like to see less government and more private practice and more public-private partnership to actually increase efficiencies. That being said, I think very few people would actually think today that politics is working. So the idea that we're going to talk about partisanship and maybe hope this time that the government's going to work more efficiently, especially after what just happened with the Kavanaugh hearings, unlikely. If you're a Republican or a Democrat, you're going to be voting party line. And if you don't vote party line, you will be punished. You will be pushed aside. Now is an opportunity to start diluting the power of these two fighting, warring factions and put in some third-party, independent voices, people who can actually vote their conscience and side with whichever party is based on an issue that's appropriate for the people of New Mexico. And that's what I have the ability to do as a libertarian. So I will build coalitions with whomever is appropriate for every issue. And, you know, they won't be able to ignore me for long, because at some point there's going to be a close vote and they're going to need my vote. And that's just the reality of it. So I will work with everybody who wants to work with me. Thank you.
Mr. Princeton, thank you. Our next question. We all know Albuquerque is battling a rough crime problem. State and local leaders are trying to take some action. But what can you do in Congress to help your city?
Mrs. Arnold-Jones, you are first.
Well, the truth is, crime is truly a local problem. But there are things that can be done and should be done. First is you have to work with everybody. You have to work with Mayor Keller. You have to work with whoever is the governor. But most importantly, and when it comes to crime, we have got to address the sanctuary city rules in the city of Albuquerque in particular. One of the downsides of the sanctuary city rules is we are not able to communicate with the federal entities that actually can help take the bad guys off the streets. Now, that's the simple part. There is more. On the federal level, we are responsible for the U.S. attorneys, the district judges, as well as the Marshal Service. They need to be fully funded. And then there is the other grant programs that are available to police departments. I will move heaven and earth to make sure that every grant that is available to Congressional District 1. At the end of the day, though, we still have a problem in New Mexico where we have a problem that the Supreme Court set up, and now we are not keeping people in jail who really are doing harm to people in our community, who are continuing to break into houses, who are continuing to rob people. They're continuing to hurt our constituents. So we can do a little bit, but we're going to do a lot more here at home.
Ms. Arnold-Jones, thank you. Ms. Haaland, you're next.
Yes, since I started my primary election campaign, I have been advocating for a return to community policing. We need more police on the streets, but we need them in the community where neighborhoods know who they are and they know the neighbors, because I believe that building that community structure will help us have a safer city. I pledge to work as much as I can with Mayor Keller and any law enforcement agency here in the state and across District 1 to ensure that we are doing what we can to make it a safer place. There are 2 tribal communities in District 1, and so that would mean also having a relationship with tribal police. The biggest problem that I've seen between tribal, municipal, county, city, police, and law enforcement agencies is their ability to communicate. So I think the more they can communicate, the better our district and our state will be, and I will fully advocate for that. I have also come out very strongly for legalizing cannabis, because I believe that our prisons are getting filled with people for nonviolent crimes, and I think that in lieu of that we should be offering rehab and drug courts and allocations for those purposes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Princeton, you were next.
Thank you very much. Yes, criminal justice reform is very near and dear and by heart, and we've heard a few excellent ideas already. Absolutely. You know, the legalization of cannabis will not only provide jobs for the state, which are so necessary, but it will take the nonviolent offenders out of the system. And here's the beauty of this. We can take these people out of the system without putting more money into the system. We will free up law enforcement and give them the ability to actually go after violent offenders and actual criminals, people who are stealing. So that's point one. From a federal level, we absolutely need to eliminate mandatory minimum sentencing guidelines. That's a must. And in addition to drug rehabilitation, has been pointed out, we also need mental health access. You know, there's just a mental health crisis going on, and it's leading to drugs, and it is certainly leading to crime. And, you know, how about getting people out of the system before they get into the system? What about the juvenile justice courts and the family courts? You know, if a child breaks a law, there is an at-risk family behind it. We need to get in and figure out what's going on there and nip that in the bud before they advance into the adult system. So, you know, these are some of the basic things that we need to do. And, you know, sometimes it does feel like moving heaven and earth, but I don't think that, you know, we need to do that. We just need to put a real common sense approach to things. And frankly, to the APD, I'd love it if you'd get all these speeding drivers. If we could just nip that in the bud until we change the other laws, we may just make this a friendlier city to be in. Thank you.
Mr. Princeton, thank you. It is now time for our closing statements. We had said earlier that you would have 50 seconds, but we will give you each 10 extra seconds, so you now have 60 seconds for your closing statement. We're going to start first with Deb Haaland.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Deb Haaland. I'm the Democratic nominee for Congress in New Mexico's 1st District. In this era of Trump, we need new, strong voices to go to D.C. to fight for the things that New Mexicans need and deserve. We need to fight climate change. We need to move toward 100% renewable energy, and in the process create thousands of jobs for New Mexicans right here in District 1. We also need to ensure that every New Mexican has health care, and that our public school system is one that will give every child a chance at success, and that includes an early childhood education. I am that voice. I've lived New Mexico values. I would appreciate having your vote on November 6th, and if you can vote early, that's even better. Thank you. My name is Deb Haaland.
Ms. Haaland, thank you. Lloyd Princeton, you're next.
You know, we've all been voting one way for most of our lives. It's familiar, it's comfortable. But we're all mostly frustrated with politics right now. Most of us are angry with all of the fighting that's going on and the lack of compromise. We're not being heard. You know, and I wasn't being heard, which is one of the reasons why I switched from a Democrat to a Libertarian. I didn't want to be told by a party the way I had to vote, the way I had to think, and frankly, I'm just not happy with what's going on in Washington. You know, New Mexicans deserve and need an opportunity and a chance to succeed. New Mexico has been last for too long. And I'm asking you to give me a chance to demonstrate something different and to be a voice for all New Mexicans. And yes, I'm asking for your vote on November 6th. I'm Lloyd Princeton. Thank you.
Mr. Princeton, thank you. Final 60 seconds now goes to Janice Arnold-Jones.
I want to thank KOB and the listeners, the viewers again, for investing time in this election. I am prepared to go to Washington. I am grateful because you helped prepare me. I'm ready to take on the massive issues we face with national security, tax policy, health care, jobs, crime, immigration, regulation. Because when you go to Congress, you don't just get to protest. You have to look at principles. We are deciding policies, and we're making decisions that affect everybody's lives and our children's future lives. There is so much that New Mexico offers to our country. I am asking you for the privilege of advocating for this state. I will stand up for this state. I will tell this nation about the things that New Mexico bring to the table. And at the same time, I will make sure that New Mexico is fully part of this country. I am Janice Arnold-Jones, and I ask for your vote and the privilege of representing you in Congress.
Thank you. This ends our debate between the candidates for Congressional District 1 here in New Mexico. We would like to thank the candidates for joining us tonight: Deb Haaland, Lloyd Princeton, and Janice Arnold-Jones.
And of course, early voting is going underway right now. But of course, we will head to the polls on Election Day coming up in about 3 weeks. That's November 6th. We hope that you join us tomorrow evening at 6 as well, because the candidates for governor are going to be here to debate. And in the meantime, we're going to see you back here tonight for our newscast at 10. Have a great evening.